Hey, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. If you would go ahead and take seats so we can get started and stick to our promptly begin at 6 p.m. I'm Shane Moody, President and CEO of the Destin Area Chamber of Commerce, and I want to welcome you to our 2012 City Council Candidates Forum. Our chairman, Mr. Bill Leslie from Simple HR, is here as well. Bill, thanks for being with us. And we do have a couple of board members in the audience too, so thank you all for being here as well. Before I turn the program over to our moderator, I just want to share that we feel as a chamber it's our fundamental responsibility to provide these kinds of programs so that the community and the business leaders can hear from our candidates so that you can make an educated choice when you go to the polls. We want you to exercise one of the greatest freedoms that we have in this country, and that's the freedom to vote. I'd also like to emphasize that tonight in no way is an endorsement of any candidate by the Destin Area Chamber of Commerce, nor will we endorse anyone after this forum is over. We're simply using this as an opportunity for the candidates to express their views on issues that the chamber feels are important. And finally, I'd like to ask you all to act with courtesy tonight. No loud or boisterous comments or noises from the forum. Please respect the format that we have put in place. Both the log and the chamber, the log is our partner, came up with the process, and we were going to stick with that. So please have respect for that. And anyone who is deemed to be disruptive will be asked to leave the forum. And with that, I'll turn it over to our moderator, the editor of the Destin Log, Mr. William Hatfield.
Sponsor this event, as always, with the Destin Area Chamber of Commerce. We'd also like to thank the City of Destin and City Manager Marianne Eustick and City Clerk Ray Bailey for their assistance tonight. The Log City Hall reporter, Matt Algarin, is also in the audience tonight and will be providing a play-by-play of the meeting online at thedestinlog.com. I have never heard a reporter get applause. That's phenomenal. He'll be providing that play-by-play on thedestinlog.com, so if you need a refresher course later on, that'll be the website to hit. I want to thank all those who've asked questions tonight, whether it be by Facebook, Twitter, or on these little note cards. It's my pledge that if I don't make it to your question, I will email them to the candidates as part of a future story in the Destin Log in the run-up to the election. And there's plenty of run-up to go. Before we get started, I'd like to go over the procedures for the forum. The order by which the candidates will answer will be determined by drawing a name from the mug. Each candidate's name is in the mug, and a name will be drawn, and that candidate will answer first. We'll then move to the left for the remaining candidates to answer. Each candidate will have a 1-minute opening statement. All questions will be directed to all candidates. No candidate will be singled out. Each candidate will have 90 seconds to answer each question. Our timekeeper is Shane here. He will hold up a sign when 30 seconds remain. He will then sound a bell when the 90 seconds has expired, and I will promptly cut you off and move on to the next person. Any candidate can pass on any question if he so chooses, or she. At the conclusion of the forum, each candidate will have a 90-second closing statement. Again, ladies and gentlemen, we ask you to act with integrity tonight and refrain from applause or making comments directed at the candidates during the forum. And with that, let's draw the first name to see who gets to make the first opening statement. That would be Tom Weidenhammer. Congratulations.
I don't think we have any microphones, but I can make sure that
Yeah, they're supposed to be
you can
on.
hear me. Oh, are they on? Yeah. Okay, we do. All right, I'm Tom Weidenhammer, and my wife and I moved to Destin in 1990 and became homeowners and business owners in Destin. We've owned and operated SOS Printing in Destin for over 21 years. I've been involved in many civic and city committee organizations, including before being elected to City Council, being involved with Destin Council appointed Attainable Workforce Housing Committee and the Destin Council appointed Harbor District CRA Advisory Committee. I believe that my participation on the Destin City Council and other various boards and committees has given me a good insight into various ways to approach the solution to a variety of problems and situations and to work effectively and harmoniously with others to achieve a good end result. Thank you.
Nicely timed. And let's hold our applause till the end. Moving to Mr. Wood.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jim Wood, and the decision you make in 3 weeks is no different from those made by folks for the last 236 years. How to deliver government of, by, and for the people. It has been an honor for me to serve the 12,305 citizens in Destin for the last 4 years. As in my previous campaign, I ran as no party affiliation, and I do that again this time. My only promise is to provide common sense, responsible government to our citizens. As a community leader, I believe in leading by example. I'm a law-abiding member of the community, a community volunteer. I served and learned my craft on city committees. I actively seek out and volunteer for leadership positions as needed. Both the 2010 census effort and the Oakville-Walton TPO, I'm the chair of that organization. Bottom line is, I talk the talk, I also walk the walk. I'm a 20-year military retiree who served his country both in peacetime and in armed conflict. I believe I'm the best candidate for Destin City Council. Thank you.
Mr. Dixon.
My microphone is on. Yeah, I'm on. Okay. First of all, I'd like to thank the citizens who came out tonight. Very bad weather, and I do thank you so much for being here tonight. I'd like to thank the LOG and the Chamber of Commerce for sponsoring this event. My background is I've born and raised in Destin, Florida. I've lived here all my life so far, and that's 55 years. I was the fire chief of the Destin Fire Control District for 19 years, a little better than 19 years. I was a member of the fire department for 33 years, and I did a lot of jobs whenever I was in the fire service. I was able to implement a lot of new programs, was able to do a lot that would enhance the safety and the security of our citizens, and I am a proud member of the city of Destin. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Marler.
My name is Tyron Marler, and I too was born and raised here in Destin and have seen this town grow from a little fishing village to what it is now. My thing is that what do the citizens of Destin want in a council member? Honesty, integrity, hardworking, trustworthy, with your best interest in mind? Well, I think all 6 of us up here can do that. So when it comes down to, as the old saying goes, brass tacks, all I can say is that I will do the best job that I can for you and listen to what you have to say and do what is right for all of Destin. That is the only promise that I can make and stick to. I believe that in my previous terms in office, I did my best to do the will of the people. And if you also believe that, I also ask that you give me your vote and another chance to do it again. And I just ask you for your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Monteith.
Thank you very much. I'm Scott Monteith. I moved to Destin in 1985, right after Hurricane Aaron and Opal. I came here with a remodeling crew from Missouri, and I wound up staying here longer than any place I've been in my life, just because it's such a wonderful place, and the American dream is here. Or it's one of the places in this great country, and this is a great example of it. And so I started getting active in politics in 2008 because I realized I was not going anywhere in a hurry. And so I saw things I wanted to change in our country and bring back some true Americanism, and the two-party system I felt was failing me. So I joined the Libertarian Party, got active with them, and I became active here in the city this summer because of
Thank you. And batting cleanup, Ms. Tremble.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the Chamber and the LOG for doing this tonight and hosting this event. It's always appreciate the opportunity to get our citizens involved in anything that we do here in our community. I worked really hard to do that during my tenure here and even prior to that. I've been a citizen since 1973 when I married my native husband to Destin. So I've been part of the Destin family for about 39 years now. The mother of 2, both children are adults working back in this city, so Destin's done a great job for I plan to continue on with the things that I've started, both through the CRA committees, through our volunteer committees, and through the Public Works and Safety. My goal is for the best of all citizens in the city of Destin, and I look forward to working with everyone. Thank you.
All right, let's get down to the questions for this evening. Sky, you get to be our lucky number one. And I think for the first question, we're going to start with one you hear the politicos talk about a lot, jobs. With this area's dependence on military and tourism, many experts say there is a need for economic diversification. What do you see as your role in bringing high-paying jobs to the Destin community?
Well, there's been a lot of talk about trying to attract some technical jobs, which everyone feels would fit in here. There's also been some talk about maybe some gaming. I prefer the latter and what we could do to attract them. We've got plenty of retail space now. The only thing we need is to have affordable housing for people who are working on the lower end of the pay scale, starting out families. It's not really a start-out friendly area per se, and that's something I think we could focus on a little more and make it a little more accommodating to the young family.
Thank you. Ms. Trammell.
Thank you. One of the things that we have done is we've partnered with the Economic Development Council. We've brought them up to speed on where Destin is and what we expect for Destin. And that's helped tremendously, looking at goals and steering us down the future. One of the things I can do as a council member individually, aside from talking to citizens and listening to their ideas, is, and I have done this, spent some time lobbying in Tallahassee. When we get what we want, we have the idea, we have to go beyond just Destin's borders. We have to pull the strings wherever they need to be pulled to get the jobs here that we need. We are bringing in affordable housing. There's a huge unit in the process right now looking at development. I'm really proud of that. It's going to be 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units, which we haven't had that before in the past. I think that's great. People want to come to Destin for reasons. We've got to look at those reasons that they want to come to Destin and raise their families and be part of that. And we've got to spur that activity and those ideas forward. And that's what we've got to do. Not anything specific. We've just got to make it happen for the people that want to be here. There are people out there. We've got feelers and connections everywhere. And I think we're doing that. I think we're doing a good job of that. We can do more. And as soon as we know what that is, we'll be there. And I personally will be there. Thank you.
Mr. Weidenhamer.
Thank you. I understand what the question was, the diversification of industry, but I think I'd like to approach it from a double-pronged standpoint. I think we have to make sure that we're doing all we can to keep the tourist industry that we already have. The tourist industry here comprises probably 70 to 80% of the jobs and revenue going through this city. And one of the big draws, in addition to the wonderful beaches, which on occasion needs renourishment, is the harbor fishing fleet. And during the past few years, the fishing fleet has had a problem with Noriega Point, and we need to really concentrate on doing what we can to correct everything we can in order to hold the current industry. I understand that it's very desirable to diversify, and we could do this through some type of internet industry where we're actually doing work for people outside the city. But I don't want to get to the point where we forget we are 70 to 80% tourism, and I just feel we cannot lose sight of that in this rush to diversification. Thank you.
Mr. Wood.
Thank you. First of all, I agree with diversification for businesses here in Destin. I think the oil spill last year kind of exposed the weakness that we have. When you over-rely on one thing and you get hit in that area, and you suffer the economic ramifications of that issue. I think Sandy Trammell already talked about, we have tried to partner with the Okaloosa Economic Development Council, the Destin Area Chamber of Commerce, to come up with new ways to identify those businesses that might be lacking in our area and help put together some plans to address those. We're also looking at an economic development part of our city comp plan to help us develop new ways to go out and find businesses. As an elected official, I do not believe that government creates jobs. I think we set conditions that allow jobs to flourish. If we do tax policy right, zoning right, that allows businesses to come in where they won't pay a lot of taxes, that to me is what I do as a member of government for businesses. And, if we work together through those, the proper zoning regulations, the proper tax policy, we can stimulate and encourage businesses to come here, and working with our partners, not only locally here, but at the state level and the federal level. Hopefully we can bring some jobs here. But we can also remember that the military is a $60 billion business here in Florida, is one of the lucky things we have in our area, because they will always be around, hopefully. So they're always trying to provide those high-paying jobs you've always had in the area. Thank you.
And we're back to Mr. Dixon.
First of all, as far as diversification of industry, we are a tourist area. Basically, we live in a tourist town. I would certainly encourage it and would work very hard with the business community to reach out and do everything I could to possibly do that. One of the things that we could do as a city, and that's a possibility, I don't know the legal ramifications of it, but is to provide some kind of tax incentive for companies to come in and to be able to work utilizing some of the buildings. I will say that Destin is pretty much a developed area, and that if you're going to do something like that, I think we're talking about redevelopment, and certainly I would love to see what we could do in that area. But I would say that we need to focus our attention on our tourists that come in, and we need to make sure that we don't forget the people that reside here full time, of course. But I think that basically that is something that would be down the road for a long haul, or to reach out for a long period of time to look at it. But I do feel like that we can do a little bit better job with the tourism industry that we have at present.
Thank you. And Mr. Marler.
Everyone's right. Tourism is our bread and butter. And for us to bring in the other businesses, we've got to diversify our entire city. In other words, we've got to cater not only to the tourists, but we've got to cater to the people who live here. That means amenities that are year-round for our people to go to. We have the movie theaters and we have restaurants, but some of those even close down in the wintertime, except for the catering to snowbirds. So we have to diversify and make a bigger impression if we're want to have more other businesses come in other than the tourist business. But as Mr. Dixon and the rest of them have said, tourism is our bread and butter, and besides catering to them, the only way we can do that and diversify is to be able to cater to the permanent citizens of Destin and not just our tourists.
Thank you. A reader voices a common frustration, and it's about code enforcement. She writes, why are there areas of our beautiful city that are being neglected? Litter, vagrants, unkempt properties. If there are codes, why aren't they enforced? Another, on the card, they specifically point to the Main Street area. How do you grade city code enforcement, and what improvements would you like to see? And we begin with Tuffy.
My microphone was already on, isn't that convenient? I think code enforcement, and if I had to give it a grade right now, I would give it a B. And really, to tackle a problem, it's not a way to do it by throwing more people at the problem. I think that basically there's a lot of areas in Destin that do need to be spruced up a little bit. Some of the areas that I'm talking about is not Main Street. I think Main Street looks pretty good in my opinion, but some of the areas on Highway 98, some of the buildings that basically look like they've been abandoned. Some of those areas I think need to be certainly cleaned up, and I don't know the answer to it, but I will say that I do see and recognize the problem. I would definitely be for trying to do everything that we possibly could to make it better. Although I think in some cases our hands may be tied when we get into private property issues and things like that. But I will say that I can see a lot of area that does need to be checked, and one area that comes to mind is right next to the fishing co-op. I truly don't know what's going to go on with that building there. A brand new building was built, and it seemed like it was 10 years and it was abandoned. I think that's an eyesore for our city, and I think we need to do everything we can to possibly clean it up.
Thank you. Moving on to Kyron.
Code enforcement is a touchy issue because there's so many rules and regulations involved in code enforcement, including notifications, fines, all the other things that go along with that. Getting the citizens more involved is a good way to do it, to clean up the areas that people call blighted. If you want to call certain things blighted, that means somebody didn't mow their yard or something. That could be part of code enforcement. But we have a small code enforcement task, and they have a large area to cover. And we can concentrate on that by doing a lot of different things. But it's going to take money, and a lot of people don't want to spend tax money where it's not needed. I think we can do a lot. We can change a lot of things. Main Street does look pretty good to me. I mean, there are a few areas that could be spruced up a little bit, but for the most part, Main Street looks good. There are some back streets in this town that probably need a little bit more code enforcement than others. So I think in the long run, I would also grade it a B as far as code enforcement goes. I think there's a lot of things we can do to make it better. The biggest thing we have to do is get out there and have the citizens, concerned citizens, help. In other words, if you get an area where you see your neighbor, talk to your neighbor. If your neighbor refuses, then call the city, and then maybe the city and your neighbor can work it out together. But that's about the only way we can take care of some of the blighted areas in this town.
Thank you. And we move on to Sky.
Thank you. Yes, if I understood the question correctly, it's not just about sprucing up, and I believe that's why Main Street was mentioned. That's mentioned something about vagrants and parking issues. City ordinances, my answer is Destin Police Department would enforce city ordinances and give that some teeth, and we'd have some local enforcement and local reaction and service for things that the Sheriff's Department isn't concerned with, and it's not their job because they're county officials. And so if we get our own police department, code enforcement would be stepped up, and that issue would be solved, among others.
Thank you. And Sandra. I switched the first names if you hadn't noticed.
That's okay, you can call me Sandy,
Thank you.
by the way. I look at code enforcement as an issue that everybody wants it until it's you that's broken the code. And then all of a sudden, I don't want you in my face, I don't want you telling me what to do, I don't want you telling me how to do it. So somehow as city government, you've got to come to a happy medium. So the rule generally, in my book, is a kinder, gentler way to solve this issue. You may actually detract businesses and jobs to this area if you have such a strict code enforcement regime that no one has the opportunity to break out and be their own person and do their own, facilitate their own ideas. I see the problem solved by community involvement. The more the community's involved, the greater amount of pride they have, and the more this is going to heal itself. So I spend my time, a lot of my time, working with the volunteer committees, helping them set goals, helping them to implement their goals, helping them to create and do what their goals are. A dog park's a perfect example of that. Do you know how long that would have taken for government to try to do something like that? A lot longer than a year. So I think that's where we go. That's how we do it. It's got to be citizen to citizen. It can't be a regime where we have...
Thank you. And we move on to Tom.
Thank you. I think that given the staff that we have in our code enforcement division, they are doing an excellent job. given the workload that they have. We have been right-sizing the city staff for the past 3 or 4 years, and this has been rather transparent to most of the residents in Destin. But we haven't been able to expand any of the staff to deal with any expansion in businesses or expansion in population. The other thing I think regarding code enforcement, sometimes we confuse things that are really not code enforcement items. You might see somebody with tall weeds in their yard. The city does not have any code that governs how tall your grass can be. Or you might think that something looks unkempt in your neighbor's yard. There may not be any code that says that we have a rule against that. You know, you have to recognize what the real codes of the city are and where people's private property rights take over for their own property. So a lot of times I think there's some confusion as to exactly what code enforcement can do and cannot do. Thank you.
All right, and Jim, you have the last word on this topic.
Thank you. I think Sandy and Tom kind of hit some important points on the head that, you know, as a retired military guy, I believe in you set a standard up front, and if you do that and enforce it, after a while, folks will learn what you're supposed to do. If you don't set and enforce the standard from day one, it's awful hard after the fact to try to enforce a rule that hasn't been enforced for a long time. I mean, Destin's been around for over 25 years now. Some things have been enforced and some things haven't. I mean, a lot of neighborhoods have neighborhood associations. One of the areas you can start is right there. Those folks are supposed to be policing their own neighborhoods, but they don't always do it. And it falls back on somebody calls code enforcement or somebody calls the sheriff, and then we've got to figure out whose issue is it to solve, or even if it can be solved. And many times it can't be solved. You know, a little individual responsibility on the part of homeowners would go a long way to do that. You know, we talk about Main Street. You know, with the Adopt a Street program here in Destin, we tried to kick this off a number of years ago, and some folks have adopted a street. If you drive on Main Street, you'll see my family's name on a sign, because we adopted Main Street south of Airport Road, and we try to keep it looking as nice as we can. We're glad that the, Gulf Power and Destin water users and the shopping mall at the inn spruce up their areas. It looks a whole lot better now. But I think if we all work together, I know it's tough. You know, when you're the one getting the ticket from code enforcement, you don't want to be that person. So we got to find a happy medium somewhere in the middle where we can get things done as best we can.
Thank you. All right, so now we're going to jump to a topic that dominated plenty of time in the past year, and that is garbage. And this question comes from a Facebook reader on the Destin Log site. And here we go. For the third time since its incorporation, Destin citizens were required to file a petition of repeal in order to stop the city council from implementing a controversial new ordinance for collecting service fees. Looking back, what would you have done differently to avoid putting Destin through this painful process? Do you think the city ultimately benefited as a result of the petition of repeal, or would you still like to see the original ordinance passed? And we start with Ms. Trennell.
Thanks. First of all, I don't see the process through which the citizens went as a negative. I look at that as very positive for us. We're sitting up here, 7 members, coming up with an idea, passing it, hadn't heard from anybody until 4 or 5 citizens spoke up. Well, when you're looking at the city of Destin and you want to know what in the world 4 or 5 citizens are saying versus the whole silent majority, you have no idea how big the silent majority is. I think the process worked beautifully, and personally, I'd like to see it done more often. It didn't change my mind. What it changed was the fact that now I understand there are more citizens than the 5 that stood up there and spoke that also agree with this or disagree with this. So I had no problem saying, let's look for a different solution. So to me, it's the best process I think that we have. I personally took it as a thank you very much. I appreciate knowing that there are more than just 5 citizens out there who came to the meetings and let us know. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Weidenhammer.
I think when we initially approached the problem, we felt that the collection, we wanted the Clean City Initiative, which meant that every residential property in the city would have garbage collection and service. This has not always been the case. There were approximately 600 properties that were not receiving service. We initially took that approach because it was the simplest to collect the money through the tax collector, existing county tax collector. When that apparently was not the right solution, according to the citizens, we then developed a second solution so that the garbage hauler would again bill the citizens for the garbage service, but the city was going to enforce that citizens would have garbage service at every residential unit. And this is, in the end, accomplished our initial goal of ensuring that every residential unit would have garbage service. Thank you.
And Mr. Wood.
I think if you go back and check the council agendas for 2011, trash was on every one of them, the entire year. I learned more about trash than I care to know, frankly. But it was a very detailed issue, and it was a little contentious. But you know, contentiousness is not a bad thing. You know, we had initially, as a tax-paying citizen, I looked at the issue of putting your trash bill on an ad valorem special assessment and thought, for me, it was a pretty good deal. I don't have a problem paying my taxes. Some folks do, and I understand that. And, you know, as we went through the process, we knew that many communities in Florida used the same thing. And they went through the same issues we went through. Some of them stayed the course, and some of them didn't. When presented with a petition of my citizens, the one thing that I would not do was vote against a petition, especially one with 1,500 and something names on it. You don't get petitions that often. It was the first one that I dealt with, and I was not going to vote against it. In the end, you pay for your trash, whether it's by tax or by quarterly bill from Waste Management. In the end, it gets paid for. We got rid of the stickers. The trash is going to get picked up. It's not going to litter our city. And I think as an overall process, we're probably better because we went through that process. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Dixon.
Yes, I think, to be honest with you, I really never said this out loud, but I think it was a bad idea. I think it was a bad idea, and I think that the citizens basically called the council on it. And when I say a bad idea, I don't mean I'm not trying to be negative toward any present council member or anything like that, but I just think that sometimes we need to get citizens advisory committees together and maybe run things by them. Take a select group of citizens and bring them in and talk to them and let them know what you're trying to do. I think one of the things on this particular issue was the fact that when the citizens got their notice that came that said that their trash bill was going to be put on their tax bill, that was the first time they actually saw where this could happen. And I think that's where all the citizens came out and they voiced their concerns. Everybody doesn't read the newspapers. Everybody doesn't keep up with what's going on up here with the city council. So I think that basically what happened was when they got the first notification or the letter that was received, I think that basically brought them out in droves. And I feel like that, well, I know that anything that goes on your tax bill is then a tax. And from that point, you know, why not do something else? And I think that basically is the crux of the whole problem is that this would have been a tax. It would have been a tax that would have been sometimes if it was not a house that was occupied.
Thank you. Mr. Marlar.
Well, first off, the city hired Waste Management to pick up our garbage and do the billing. And then they want to say, no, we don't want to bill, we want somebody else to bill because we are not getting all the money we're supposed to get. Great, all right? We can get code enforcement out there to help try to get the people that aren't paying. Secondly, we should have went out for bid. I know, I've heard that they put it out for bid and nobody came back. Well, if you have to do it 3 or 4 times to get it out for bid, that's the one thing, because prices will go down. Thirdly, they negotiated over a year in advance for the contract, which meant cost of the fuel, cost of a lot of other things were different at the year in advance to what they are now. Fuel went up, fuel went down, back and forth. We hired a company to do the job. They're supposed to do the job, not us. The citizens are the city to do the job. If they wanted to find a collection agency, they should have found a better way to collect the bill other than force us to put it on our tax bills and everything. It might have worked to make everyone do their fair share, but it was just going about the wrong way.
Thank you. And Mr. Monty.
Thank you very much. Well, this is one of the main reasons I'm here tonight, and this is the police contract that was in question this summer. The council failed to see, when this one man already said, that the people first realized when they got the notice in the mail. They hadn't been paying attention, whatever. And so they were very upset, and they came here, and the vast majority spoke out against it that night. And not very often do you have 16, 17 people speaking out on a single issue in one night at this council meeting. And so that the council failed to see what they were doing was an overreach is why I'm here today, to remind them that the citizens require more from their servants, which is what we are. We're a service industry. This is a volunteer group, and we're here to serve and listen to what the people want and to enforce their will.
Thank you. All right, I'm hoping that I can briefly deviate from the rules and give you guys 2 questions that will only have an answer that need not be more than 5 words. The question should be easily answerable in 5 words. And so, here we go. Of the many tourist attractions we have in Destin, what do you think is the best known and needed to preserve? Go, Mr. Wattenhammer.
Destin Harbor, Noriega Point.
4 words, perfect. Mr. Wood.
It's going to be more than 5 words. The fishing fleet, the harbor, and Noriega Point. How about that?
Thank you.
In combination.
Mr. Dixon.
Beach, charter boats, Noriega Point, and tourism.
Mr. Marler.
The harbor, our fishing fleet, and Noriega Point, and our beaches.
Mr. Monty.
Noriega Point, the harbor, and the traffic issues.
Perfect. All right, one more with 5-word answer or less. Oh, I'm not, Ms. Trem, I'm so sorry.
That's the quietest I've gotten your attention yet. Okay. And of course, I'm a woman, so I have more than 5 words. So, Crab Island, beaches, Noriega Point, the harbor, and the fleet. And not in any particular order.
All right. If you had one big accomplishment / project you would like to see succeed, what would that be if you were to be elected? And this is asking for one big accomplishment. 5 words. And we begin with Kyron Marler.
Harbor Boardwalk.
Mr. Monty.
Destin has its own police department.
Ms. Tremble.
The stabilization of Noriega Point.
Mr. Weidenhamer.
Stabilization of Noriega Point.
Mr. Wood.
I'll go with Noriega Point also. Thank you.
And Mr. Dixon.
Noriega Point.
All right. All right, now we'll get back to the normal rules. Sorry for that curveball. This question comes from the Logs Facebook page. A reader asks, how would you handle the traffic problem during spring break and high tourist season on 98? Now even tourists have found the back roads. Obviously, traffic is a common complaint among residents. Is there anything you can do as a city councilman about this issue, and if so, what? And Sandy Trammell, you begin.
how appropriate, since I worked as a volunteer for quite a while to get the multimodal ordinance passed through the city. The first thing we need to do is look at multimodal transportation and all that that entails. The second thing that we need to revamp now that we've gotten some other things out of the way is to really work on getting our corridor finished. If your corridor only goes halfway, that means the traffic has to all come back into 98 again. And unfortunately, our corridor is real good to the east, but to the west, where we actually need the extra lanes, we're really short. So we've really got to focus on that, and that is one of my plans, to focus on that. And yes, the tourists have found the back streets, and thank goodness, because we have all our businesses back there. That means they've also found some businesses that they normally wouldn't have found. So I'm appreciative of that, even though I don't like sitting in the hot traffic any more than anybody else does. I think the corridor and the multimodal are going to get us where we need to go. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Weidenhamer.
Thank you. Most of the folks probably haven't been on I-20 in Atlanta on rush hour when there's 4 or 5 or 6 lanes all at a complete dead stop, and they move at 5 to 10 mile an hour, inching their way into the city in the morning. But, so I understand that we have a traffic problem. I'm not sure it's as bad as sometimes folks let on to take an extra 2 or 3 minutes to get somewhere. We have purchased land to complete the corridor to the west. Now, during this tough economic time, we're not finding any funding from the state to help us complete that corridor from the end of Legion Drive through what used to be the old trailer park and over to Azalea. But hopefully over the next couple of years, we will be able to secure funding from the state to complete that stretch, and that should improve the local access to getting past the traffic on 98 through Destin. Thank you.
Mr. Wood.
Thank you. As the chair of the Okaloosa Walton TPO, I really like this question. Unfortunately, the answers aren't any better than you've heard so far. Ms. Trammell hit 2 important points, multimodal and finishing our Destin connector with the last piece going through the old campground from Beach to Benning. Unfortunately, we in Destin have a main street, but the true main street is Highway 98, and we don't control it. I wish I did. It's awful tough. I've heard varying opinions on Highway 98 traffic. I've lived lots of places where there's lots of traffic, and traffic is always relative. But traffic is also cha-chings of cash registers. What would be nice is if vehicles in Destin were actually going to Destin and stopping and doing their business. But much of our traffic on 98 is through traffic, going from Pensacola to Panama City and points beyond. So there are some plans right now to make some improvements to Highway 20 across the bay. And also there's been talk in the past of a new bypass through Eglin, but I think Representative Gates mentioned it might cost $1 billion. That's way down the road. But some of those things might help take some of the traffic off of 98 if you're not going to do business in the local area. Otherwise, I think multimodal in the Destin connector will help our local folks be able to get around. And if nothing else, hey, I bought a bike. Try to ride one sometime. It's pretty nice. You can get across Destin, just wear a helmet, be safe, and over time we'll see where the traffic goes. Thank you.
Mr. Dixon.
Yes, I am certainly not as up on this as what the current council members are, but I would say that we certainly need to finish the corridor that has been designed and laid out for a number of years. I don't know where the money would come from to actually accomplish this, but maybe grant funding or something may come along to where we can get that completed. Far down the road and looking out over everything, I think we're going to need some sort of a elevated highway, and I know that's really reaching, but an elevated highway that maybe could give 1 or 2 accesses to I-10 or to some other major artery someplace, I think would be a big help, which As I said, I know we're talking about a lot of money that we certainly are never going to have, and especially never going to have within the city of Destin. But working with surrounding communities, it may be possible, and it may be possible working with DOT. I think that we have an issue in the fact that we are taking so many people and putting them together in one place here in Destin, and basically we're 4 lanes through Destin, and they get into Fort Walton Beach, or we get into 2 lanes, from 4 lanes to 2 lanes, and I think a lot of times that just doesn't work. So I think what we have to do is work with the MPO and try to do everything that we possibly can to make sure that surrounding communities are playing together, and that we can come up with something that will be for everybody's use. And the fact that we could possibly, way down the road, come up with a elevated highway.
Thank you. Mr. Marlar.
Finish our multimodal transportation issue is one thing. We need to finish that and get this all through town. Get our east-west corridor, our secondary corridor done. Again, as Mr. Dixon said, we don't know where we'll find the money, but we need to find that money. And another thing is to get the state to answer the city's phone calls. I serve on the Public Works, Public Safety Committee, and a lot of times we can't get answers back from the state on what they're wanting to do. They won't answer anybody's phone calls half the time and tell us, hey, what are you going to do with Highway 98? They need to do something with it. The 6 laning they've been promising, they keep putting off because they say that we don't have the tax money for it. Well, we seem to have tax money for all kinds of other fun stuff that they come up with, but we just don't seem to be able to find the funds that they need to fix Highway 98. They can't even fix the pothole, the manhole problem we have from Big Kahuna all the way to Main Street. So we need to get the state to really start answering our questions, put some fire to their feet. And also, we just need to try, and I agree, Mr. Woods is right. Maybe we need to get some bicycles out and do a little more riding. I probably could use the exercise. But I think we do our multimodal stuff and we get the state to and hold their feet to the fire. I think we can do a good job of trying to get our traffic issues solved.
All right, Mr. Monteith with the last word.
Thank you very much. New roads would be great, and like everybody said, the money's the question. But something we spend money on now is, again, law enforcement, and if Destin had its own PD, there would be resources that we could use directly to control a immediate traffic need as we see it. And it would be something that the city controls directly and exclusively, which is something we don't have now. And we would get more bang for the buck, for sure. Thank you.
Question from the audience. At last count, 3 of the 5 county commissioners are for abandoning beach restoration for Okaloosa Island. Are you in favor of the city of Destin taking over the beach restoration project for West Destin, knowing that a judge has concluded that the sand from the Barrow site is inferior? And Sky Monteith, you begin on this one.
Well, with the judgment that the sand's inferior already makes it not the right answer. All right, so we need to find something that is acceptable to the court and to the residents.
Thank you. Ms. Tremor.
Well, I will tell you that I am in favor of Destin taking it on for our critical need areas. I appreciate the fact that we looked at and have looked at as a city the opt-out option for our people on the beach that opt out of renourishment. There are times when you have to renourish, and those times for some people are now. The judge based his decision on aesthetics alone. We've also had contrary information from other organizations that they cannot base that formula on just aesthetics. I have done my research. I've found out that the shell issue that everybody brought up, those shells can be filtered out before the sand is ever put on the beach. So that shell issue can go away. But one thing I want to remind people, I've been here since 1960, lived in Destin since 1973. In 1960, we walked on this beach and we collected shells. We loved having the shells. Those are a natural part of Destin Beach. The only reason they're not there now is because we clean the beaches with those automated machines. We haven't even looked to determine if those automated machines are fluffing our sand up so much that it's causing some of this erosion. So there's a whole lot of other issues going on here that we need to look into. But yes, for critically eroded beaches, I am for renourishment and where the people can opt in or opt out.
Thank you. Mr. Weidenhamer.
I understand that the judge had his opinion of it, and then the DEP had their opinion of it when they said the judge wasn't right. They said the DEP, Florida Department of Environmental Protection, said that the sand from the Barrow area was the same as what was on the beach before all the beach cleaning machines run across and clean all the debris and shells out of it. I'm only speaking for Destin. Okaloosa Island is not within my purview, but I support beach restoration for those who want it. Some beachfront property owners want desperately to have the beach restored in front of their property to both protect the buildings and provide beachfront recreation for our numerous tourists who stay in their buildings. Other property owners feel that their buildings are adequately protected and do not want to participate in the restoration. While beach restoration is more permanent when all properties along a certain stretch do it, I would say favor letting those property owners who do not want it to opt out and do the restoration for those properties that desire it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wood.
Thank you. And again, I think Sandy and Tom hit this right on the head. You know, we, at the city council, just passed a resolution, I believe, was it the last meeting, or meeting before that, where we took a kind of general view that we supported the issue of taking the beach restoration project over should the county back out. You know, we passed that resolution with a lot of details not known yet about the opt-out plan, about funding sources, about liability. So there's lots of questions still to be answered. As a general concept, I support the beach renourishment on Okaloosa, or on Holiday Isle. You know, I think it's a tough issue. You know, you have private, you have public beach, and in this area, without the beaches being renourished, if those on our other ends, whether it be Orange Beach, Alabama, or Panama City Beach, Florida, if they do those jobs and they get the folks to come there. And I think we need folks coming here. This is our bread and butter during tourism. If people don't come here because our beaches aren't kept up, then somebody else wins that dollar fight. And frankly, we're the best around, and we ought to be winning that dollar fight. So getting the beaches done, I think, is important, and I will continue to support, but also keep an eye on the opt-out plan, the funding sources, and the liability issues for the city of Destin. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dixon.
Well, I definitely am a supporter of beach renourishment, and as far as the county basically backing out of the plan that they had in action, I would say that Destin did the right thing, and hopefully they will do the right thing in picking up and taking over for the restoration that needs to be done in Destin. I will say that in cases of, give you an example, JDE's condominiums, that they would take, I would imagine, concrete if they could to keep their building from falling into water. And when I say that some places desperately need this, no matter what the quality is. If you have to, put some sand in there and put something on top of it later on when you can. But I will say that I am a proponent of beach renourishment. I think that it is something that needs to be done for the protection of our tourism industry. And I think that it is good for the whole. When I say it's good for the whole, it's good for everybody. And as far as shells being in the sand, I too grew up here walking those beaches and picking up shells. And I would definitely say that there is some shells out there, and if there's a way to filter them, we could certainly do it. And I will say too that a couple of people have approached the county and really been big major opponents of this thing, and they have no telling how much money's been spent fighting this thing. So, but I do support it. So.
Thank you, and Mr. Marler.
I too believe in beach renourishment. So no beaches, no tourists, and eventually no condominiums, because they'll fall right on into the water if we don't protect what's there. At the same time, the same sand they're looking at from the borrow site by natural attrition comes back to the shore, but that takes a long, long time versus pumping the sand from the borrow areas. The biggest problem that we have is getting people to understand that beach renourishment is not because we're trying to take a beach. We're trying to save a beach. We're trying to save our tourist industry, and the only way we can do that is beach renourishment. So the best thing to say is, yes, I am for beach renourishment, and as far as the color of the sand, the sun will bleach it out white as our sugar beaches are today over time, just like it does today for natural attrition.
Thank you. All right, in the run-up to the form from Mr. Moody here that talked about the council ensuring quality growth that benefits our community. And so my question is what are your well, this isn't my question. This is a question from the audience. What are your criteria for quality growth that benefits our community? And Tuffy Dixon, you begin.
Quality growth, I think that benefits our community is I think we've got basically enough condos as we are right now, although I do feel like it is if they are to code or to their setbacks and everything else, that they should be allowed to build whatever it is legal for them to build right now. I am of the opinion that as far as the development or the redevelopment of our area, I would want to make sure that we're not developing any more t-shirt shops. That's one of the things that I have kind of issues with, and the fact that when we speak of quality development, it is a right of the people that own property to build whatever kind of business they want, but I would be looking for more quality development versus, again, big boxy t-shirt shops. And when we talk about, quality development, my idea is to do something to redevelop our harbor area. Our harbor area, I feel like, is what's going to be from our beaches to our harbor area is the area that really needs to be looked at and decide how we want that to look. My idea of it is to make sure that we blend a little bit of restaurants and shopping centers and hotels, condos, whatever it may be, but make sure that we have a mix of things is my idea.
Thank you. Mr. Marler.
More year-round businesses that cater to the permanent residents as well as the tourist residents is the one thing that I would look at. Also, I would look at various ways that we can entice more permanent residents to get here, which would bring in businesses. We lack a few businesses. We don't have a fried chicken place for one thing. No KFCs, no Popeyes, anything like that. We lack in a lot of other areas that cater to the local business community and the local permanent residents. So we need to do that, as well as Mr. Dixon said, we need to look at our harbor. Our harbor was our original lifeblood. We've met the beaches become part of our lifeblood, but our harbor and our fishing fleet are part of our lifeblood. So we need to help promote growth in that area also.
Thank you. Mr. Monteith.
Yes, well, we need to use the chamber to find, to get info on when companies that we're looking for, some sort of tech companies or medical companies have often been bandied about. When they're in the area, in the panhandle, shopping for a location, we have plenty of that sort of office space available here. And if we can have the foreknowledge that someone is shopping in this area, then we could court them accordingly. And that would help also bring in more families. Again, I'm really for families and anything to help people get their first home, raise their family. This is really the perfect environment for that. And anything we can do to develop families, I'm all for it.
Thank you. Ms. Tremel.
Thank you. One of the things that I have agreed with that the council is working on right now is in managing growth is looking at our tiering system that we have throughout our city. basically for our condominiums, tier 1, 2, and 3, and tier 3 is where you can max it out and you can put the maximum number of people in there, but you have to provide a public benefit. Well, in the process of doing all that, we haven't found a public benefit that's really a public benefit yet. So we need to look at those kinds of things and congeal those, because you don't want to turn Destin into a mass of super high-rise buildings that you can't support. And by support, I don't mean physically. I'm talking about we need to have entertainment and leisure amenities to be able to support that many people. We need to have businesses, we need to have homes and residences that will support those businesses. We do use mixed use, which I am a proponent of, but I think we need to make sure that, especially if we're getting chains in and restaurants or this kind of whatever we're getting in, we want to make sure that those people support our community. We have a chain in this town that just appalled me when I found out that they were not supporting one of the major projects that we just completed. And I sat there and I thought, well, gosh, how can you be part of Destin and not support what's going on in Destin that relates to what you do? It just doesn't make any sense. But all of that has to mesh and congeal, and we can do that through our ordinance.
Thank you. Mr. Weidenhamer.
All right, well, I guess everybody's definition of quality development is probably subjective. I think that most of the projects that I've seen go up in Destin in the past 5 or 10 years, in my estimation, have been quality development. Now, not everybody may think that, because as I said, that word is subjective. We have to recognize the fact that we have certain codes and zoning ordinances and that allow certain businesses and certain types of buildings in different sections of the city. And I think that primarily the free marketplace is going to determine what the private property owners are going to do with their property within the zoning allowances and codes of the city. They're certainly not going to build something that nobody's going to use. We had many projects that were at one time on the board before we had the real estate crash, and most of those projects, in my estimation, were quality type buildings. And here again, the free market determined whether those were going to be built or not. And I just feel that this is the type of situation, and quality development is in the eye of the beholder. Thank you.
Thank you, and Mr. Wood.
Thank you. Well, I guess quality growth is, as Tom said, is in the eye of the beholder. I don't know if we're wanting to talk about development or just growth, because as I learned last campaign, there's good development and there's bad development. Now, we have a land development code and a comp plan that spells out what you can and can't do, and it's very objective. It's all about the numbers. Now, I will pose a question to you. Do you believe in private property rights? Because if you don't like a condo and you tell me to go take it away, be careful what you ask for. Because as soon as I take that one away, I may come after you next. When you start taking away private property rights, be careful where you start at. Because that's a slippery slope that will never end. Now, I am a huge proponent of annexation. I'm changing the subject a little bit. This is about quality growth and making our city finally be what it should have been 26 years ago. There are lots of items to the east of Destin. Start with Walmart, Home Depot, Kelly Plantation, Regatta Bay, Destin Commons Mall, the new Lowe's store, the Public Shopping Center. None of that is in the city limits of Destin, whether you realize it or not. So there are lots of things that we could be doing quality development-wise if we expanded the tax base that would come from those folks being in Destin. The trick is, what do you offer somebody to get them to come into Destin? And that's a problem we've been struggling with now for a number of years. And I hope that...
Thank you. All right, and I reckon we are on to our closing statements. And we will end here with, well, in some ways the beginning, since we often talk about the harbor being our heritage. Now that the boardwalk is under construction, what can you as a CRA board member do to enhance business opportunities and further growth along the harbor district? And with all the talk of transforming the harbor district into a festive marketplace, what exactly does a festive marketplace look like to you? And Jim Wood, you begin.
That was a mouthful, okay? Geez, what does a festive marketplace mean to me? I think it's a mix of both residential and business, restaurants. It's stuff that both tourists and locals want to use, not just one set. I think that as a council, we also wear the hat of the CRA board. We also have a CRA advisory committee on the harbor and the town center, and getting those good ideas we can that percolate up through the businesses. I mean, there's, you know, the one thing that sets Destin apart is that we have the harbor. Lots of folks have condos, lots of folks have beaches, but what Destin has is the harbor. So as a focal point of Destin, that we've tried to make that our focal point in doing the boardwalk project, and hopefully the businesses will come in and want to locate along that boardwalk. Should make that a much better area for both business, locals, tourism, what have you. I think that if we can get that stimulated, that will be a long way to make Destin what's already a destination. It'll make it even a better one. And once we get folks here and they see what a great community we have, we'll get those quality people here. I think that when we use all those tools in combination, we can make Destin and our harbor area and festive marketplace the best that we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dixon.
Festive marketplace sounds like where people go and buy groceries and dance or something. But I will say that as far as the harbor goes itself, I think what we need to do, and to reemphasize what we're talking about here, I think that I have been talking about here, is I think that we need to ensure that whatever development and redevelopment that goes on in the harbor is quality. And I think we need to try to find some kind of a mixed use on the harbor. I think that the boardwalk that the city has voted to go ahead and begin with, I thank the city council members for that vote. I think it is a good thing that they're working on. It should be done with it by April, or supposed to be. I think that what we need to do from that point is to work with the harbor owners, people that own property on the harbor, and try to see if we can entice them into maybe doing some things outside of their realm, as far as if they're just going to put condos there. Let's do something a little different with it. Let's maybe put a condo in maybe a restaurant, or maybe some sort of a kids play area or something like that. And when I say that, I'm talking about the fountains and things like that they have in different places that children can come and play, and the parents and everybody else can be there with their kids and shop, and so that's my idea of the harbor itself. So.
Thank you. Mr. Marler.
Mr. Dixon's right. We need to think outside the box. We need to do different things on the harbor to make it more friendly for families to bring their children down there. But we also need to make sure that people know our heritage. Our fishing fleet and our heritage of our fishing industry is what made this town to begin with, and now the tourists and the beaches. But the biggest thing is that we want those things to be down there for a festive marketplace where there's something to do all the time for not just one individual, but for everyone, for all the families. As I said it earlier, we don't want the harbor to be a place to see. We want it to be a place to be.
Thank you. Mr. Monteith.
Thank you very much. Yeah, the harbor has always been a place to go since I came here in '95. And it's changed a lot since then, but I can still see Destin. It still has the charm that everyone talks about and that they're trying to save here. And it is still there. And it has developed nicely. And I was just yesterday walking along the harbor, talking to some of the property owners there. And they all had just great things to say about the project and the way it finally came through. And especially, I must say, for Ms. Trammell. So I was glad to hear that, and I'm glad to see that Destin is developing in a quality manner and still retaining its spirit and flavor. And I'd just like to see that continue, and the next thing we have to work on is parking.
Thank you. Ms. Trammell.
Well, I'd just like to clarify that what's going on in the harbor right now is only phase one. Sit back and watch for bigger things. We're going on. The festive marketplace, in my mind, is where people of all ages are involved in work and leisure activities at any time. So yes, that's a big bite to swallow, and it's a big goal to shoot for. But I know, working with the property owners, that we're going to be keeping the activities going down there to draw people in. Not only locals, visitors, and local people on either side of us that live outside of the city of Destin. One of the things that the Harbor Board and the Advisory Committee needs to do now with the property owners is to unify the brand. We got the boardwalk going in, we got to unify the brand. It's a festive marketplace, and we need to get there, and get there as quickly as possible. And once you get there, or in the process of getting there, the people that are there and the people that buy into that will be buying into that brand. They'll be buying into that concept, and so things will go farther down the road. One of the things the city can do immediately is to make sure that we keep Heritage Park right on the forefront so that we have the gateway to get down there. That's our part.
Thank you. Mr. Weidenhamer.
Festive marketplace, I think I saw some of it during the summer. My wife and I manned a booth down in one part of the harbor while we were raising dog park money, and we were down there probably for about 4 to 6 hours once a week for 13 weeks. And I saw a lot of festive marketplace activity at this one particular spot on the harbor. Now, if we could generate that the whole way down the boardwalk, we'd really have an attraction. And I think that it's vitally important that we have this type of attraction in central Destin to attract people back to the harbor area who aren't necessarily going to fish. I have nothing against fishing, don't get me wrong, but not everybody fishes. And by having this other type of attraction, we can keep people from venturing too far east and get a little more back into central Destin to enjoy what we have here in what I call Old Town. I think that the property owners are going to benefit tremendously from this boardwalk, probably more so than what they envision. And I think that once this happens, you're going to see the property owners joining in and making sure that the entire boardwalk and that harbor area is a successful tourist attraction.